Who is the funniest companion in Baldur's Gate 3? That's what I'm going to be answering today. I'll be doing a tier list of the funniest characters in Baldur's Gate 3, and starting things off, we got Will. Now, Will is more so on the serious side of things. I do think he's a very underrated character. People don't show him enough love. But Will just doesn't have his. He's got a lot going on between Mizora and being the Blade of Frontiers. So I think that he does have some great writing at times, but he's more on the serious side of things. So I'm going to put Will in the B tier. He has a funny joke when you get into the circus, but I still think that there's funnier characters here. So we actually have next Gale. Now, Gale is goofy, and I think that's what makes him so funny. I think that the best way to get the humor out of Gale is to play as a sorcerer. And if you're daring to be wild, play as a wild magic sorcerer that doesn't have full control over your powers. So not only are you born with magic, but you don't have great control over it compared to Gale, who is, he studies magic and he's very egotistical about it. I think that that brings out the funniest moments in Gale is playing as a sorcerer. I have even just a draconic sorcerer, and he gets kind of jealous in a funny way. So I would put Gale in the A tier. He does have some great interactions, and actually one of the funniest moments that I think Gale has is when you're in Act 2 and there's a dead spider corpse. If you haven't seen Gale's reaction if you lick the corpse, it's worth seeing because he's just the way he reacts is funny. Stop looking at the spider. Like it's funny. So Gale is, I would say, Will's underrated as a whole, but Gale's underrated for his comedy chops. Like this guy is seriously just great delivery on his lines. Next, speaking of great delivery on lines, Neil Newman did an amazing job with Asterion. I think that Asterion, he's not written to be a comedic character, but I think that he does have some moments where he is extremely comedic. So I'm going to put Asterion up in the S tier. I think that the voice actor, Neil, he did a fantastic job. I laughed more at Asterian's lines just from how it was said versus what was said. So Baldur's Gate 3 shows what good voice acting means in a video game, but Asterion, he's a very tragic character, but despite that being tortured for 200 years, he's still got a sense of humor to him. So, also in the circus, I think the circus is really when you get to see some characters' real funny moments. If you volunteer him to go up on stage, his reaction is priceless. I'm gonna kill you. Like it's just funny. I think Astarion's great for just the voice acting alone, but also he's got some funny moments in the game. Next we got Lae'zel, who I understand with her story and where she's coming from. She's actually the youngest out of all the companions. I guess Will is young too, but Lae'zel's younger. She doesn't have the same world experience as some of the other characters do that I think makes them so funny. Like, for example, Shadowheart is 48, so she's a little bit older. She is an elf, so she looks a bit younger, but Lae'zel, I think her funniest moments are actually her beefing with Shadowheart, but in terms of overall funniness, I don't think that she's as comedic as some of the others. Like Minthara, who is a similar character to Lae'zel, Minthara comes off way funnier just for her rude demeanor. But Lae'zel, I think, struggles, and I feel like Lae'zel's probably like the least funny out of the group. So I'm gonna put Lae'zel in the C tier. Lae'zel's still a great character, lots of nuance to her, but just not as funny as some of the other characters. Then we got Shadowheart, who I think is quite funny, honestly. She tries to tell jokes at times, and I think that her joke about the noble orchids, whenever you give her the flowers, and she's like, "Oh my goodness, they're poisonous. You didn't touch them." Like, just shows that like she is quite a humorous character. Now she also has, everyone's got their own tragic story in Baldur's Gate 3, but to have your memories wiped out and then to still have some resemblance of comedy, I think Shadowheart's pretty funny. So I'm gonna put her up in the A tier. Like she does have moments, and I think the funniest moment that Shadowheart has is actually in the post game. If you play as a Gith, you can get her to say that she is God's favorite princess. I think that line is funny. So search that up if you haven't seen it because it is quite humorous. I think she's pretty funny, underrated funny. Like she's almost like a awkward funny. So yeah, I think she's pretty great. Next we got Karlach. Karlach is, I think that she's honestly one of the funniest characters. Not only does she have like that golden retriever energy where she's always like right amped up, but she has, like, despite everything, she also has an extremely tragic backstory, and despite all that, she never lets that get the best of her. She's always happy. She dances around when you're in camp. Like, she's just great vibes despite every bad thing that's happened to her. Now, in terms of, I think Karlak actually has some of the saddest moments too in the game. After you beat Gortash, there's some interesting dialogue that you can get from her where she gets really, like, I think this is one of the most emotional parts of the game. There's a lot of emotional beats in Baldur's Gate 3, but Karlak, despite it all, stays funny. She's like, she has such funny little dialogue options whenever you pick, like, if you click on the character, like, she'll say something funny. The little random lines that they drop, I think Karlak has some of the funniest ones. Even whenever you try to go into something that's too small for her to get into, she's like, I'm too. I forget the exact quote on that, but she does say funny things consistently. I think that out of all the Baldur's Gate 3 companions, she's like one of the most consistently funny. So I want to put her up in the S tier as well. We got a jokester on our hands. This one, it's a shame that we only get him in Act 3, but Minsk and Boo, probably, I would say probably the funniest in this game. Minsk is just a big meathead berserker from Rashima, and he's a ranger in the game. He's got Boo. Boo is the brains to his brawn, and he's a tall, big character. His delivery on some lines is just so funny, and he's a lovable goofball. Like, Minsk is great. He has some sadness towards what happened between him and Jaheira, and he's well wrote as a character coming back from the previous Baldur's Gate games, but he is, like, when you think of funny characters, if you've played with all of them, you're going to think Minsk probably first, because he's just a straight up goofball at all times. So I'm going to put Minsk at the top of the S tier. I think it would go something like this. Maybe Shadowheart above Gale. So somewhere around there, but Minsk is just big, lovable goofball. Next, we got Jaheira, she actually does have a lot of comedy chops, and she'll joke around with your character more than any. Like, I think she's the most comedy minded of the companions, but she just doesn't have me laughing like some of the other voice lines that come from, like, Karlak or Astarion or Minsk. So I don't think she's funny enough to go up in the S tier personally myself, but I would say that she's top of the A tier. Funnier than Shadowheart, I would say. Like, she does actively try to be funny too. Like, you can joke around with her back, which is nice because you can joke with her about her age and things like that. And she takes it very well. Like, I think she's like one of the most comedically written characters. When you meet up with her, like, family too in Act 3, there's some funny moments there you can have if you talk to her about it. So I think Jaheira is actually quite underrated. I don't see a lot of people talk about her. It might be kind of ageism. People don't really want to talk about, don't really choose her, because you do also get Halsin, who's a druid. So there's two druids that we get to choose between, and most people, from what I've seen, choose Halsin. But I'll get into Halsin now. He's kind of like Will. Like, he's got some funny moments at times, but I think that Halsin's more of like a righteous goody like Will, and less of the like some of these are chaotic funny, like definitely chaotic funny, this group here, whereas Halsin just, I feel like he's missing some of the comedy bits that other characters have. So I want to put him at the top of the B tier. Like, there are some funny moments that he has, but nothing like the other characters. And then I saved this one for last on purpose. I think Minthara is the funniest person I know. I actually have a video on that. Minthara is the funniest person I know. So if you take her to the circus, she's pretty apt to being able to tell a joke. Like, Astarion says he's going to kill you. If you get Minthara to tell a joke, like, she tells a pretty funny joke. I'll be honest. I don't want to spoil that joke. You can go check out that video, but Minthara is one of the funniest people in this game without even trying. Like, the reason being, she is a drow. She's very aggressive. She has very negative thoughts, similar to Lae'zel, but way more negative. She very, very evilly minded in everything that she does, but the way she delivers her lines is quite funny. And it's a very weird funny. Like, not everyone's gonna, this humor's not gonna land for everyone, but if you take all the context into consideration, the way she says some things, I think she deserves to be up in the S tier alongside the rest of them. So despite being more of a serious character, she has some very funny moments just because of how serious she is. Like, kind of a 180 from Lae'zel, who is very serious with what's happened to her. Same thing happened with Minthara, but Minthara is just, the delivery is a little bit different, where it kind of comes across funny in a sense. So there's my tier list of the funniest characters in Baldur's Gate 3. Minsk, Karlak, Astarion, and Minthara, I think, are the top 4 funniest. Let me know in the comments though what you think or who you think is the funniest character in Baldur's Gate 3, or if you think these are dumb choices. Please let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.